Below here is the Florida Drive burglary homicide solved. The initial plot and crime was when responders arrived on scene at 11:05 p.m. after a 911 call on April 18th. Neighbors reported sounds of yelling, breaking of glass, and a loud bang. Officers found a 31-year-old man named Jake Miller laying in the living room floor adjacent to the couch. There were numerous signs of disturbance, like broken glass fragments near the rear sliding door of the patio area. There was blood-stain patterns present on the wall. The initial walkthrough of the crime scene was first found when the front door was partially opened. There were signs of disturbance present. The victim was located on the floor near the couch with one gunshot wound to the upper body. There were broken glass fragments observed. The bloodstain patterns were present on the wall. A wine glass was observed on the kitchen counter, and the exterior evidence was prioritized due to the rainfall. Here below are the coroner's findings. The first is the body condition. It had partial rigor mortis present in the upper body. There was livor mortis visible along the back side of the body. There were internal findings of gunshot trajectory traveling downwards through the upper chest cavity. There was damage observed to the left lung area. Additional observations was small glass fragments recovered from the victim's sweatshirt fibers. There was a red-brown transfer staining observed on the left sleeve cuff. In the external examination, there was a single gunshot wound reserved to the upper chest area, and there were small abrasions observed on the right forearm and left hand. The rough sketch that I was provided with allowed me to view the evidence markers that labeled 1. The victim, 2. The bloody footprint impressions, 3. The bloodstain patterns, 4. The glass fragments, 5. The shell casing, 6. The wine glass on the kitchen table, and 7. The front door shoe impressions. Along with the evidence markers and the rough sketch, I received additional information about the layout of the house, the heavy rainfall that was noted in the exterior patio, the hardwood floor throughout main areas of the house, and how the front door was left partially opened with the bloody footprints nearby. Useful evidence that I was provided with is first the footprint. It provided me with information on the partial zigzag outsole pattern, the circular heel wear pattern observed, the partial smearing visible near the toe area, and how it was found 1.2 meters from the victim. The reference sample that was used had characteristics involving suspect A that were similar. It had the circular heel wear observed, individual outsole damage visible noticed, and, in conclusion, suspect A had athletic shoes that displayed a zigzag outsole and circular heel wear pattern, unlike suspect B with the work shoe. Another piece of evidence that I found useful was the bloodstain pattern. It provided me with information on the additional transfer stains that were observed near the couch area, multiple droplets extended towards the hallway entrance. Bloodstain pattern measured 78 centimeters wide and 64 centimeters tall, and the downward flow patterns visible beneath the central impact area. The reference samples used were the transfer stain from the dark hooded sweatshirt sleeve and the stain from the couch cushion. They had similar red-brown coloration observed. Transfer stain patterns displayed smear-like characteristics. Sweatshirt sleeve contained directional transfer marks. And in conclusion, the bloodstain transfer from the hoodie provided a match for suspect A. Along with the useful evidence, there was also useless evidence that I found, which was the firearm and the trajectory. However, it did provide me with information on the one spent 9mm shell casing, the bullet defect observed on the wall 142 centimeters above the floor level, the additional bullet impact damage observed within the drywall, the brass shell casing displayed visible firing pin impression and extractor markings, and with the reference sample, it provided me with similar extractor mark positioning observed between questioned and reference casings. Reference test firing casings displayed similar caliber and casing dimensions. But in conclusion, although these were good pieces of evidence, it states that The reference sample was taken from a suspect's car, but within the suspects, it doesn't say if it was suspect A or B and doesn't clarify. Another piece of useful evidence that I found was the glass fragments. It provided me with information that the fragments were observed on the interior floors and exterior patio area. The majority of the fragments were found inside, and that the radial fracture patterns visible on the remaining glass panel. The reference sample was recovered by the dark hooded sweatshirt and the residential window glass sample, and similar thickness was observed. In conclusion, the reference residential window sample displayed different thickness and colorization characteristics. Listed below is Suspect A, Tyler Johnson. He had recent arguments involving unpaid money with the victim that could have been his motive. His vehicle was seen near the residence by the neighbor about 1 hour before the incident. He had a dark hooded sweatshirt recovered containing glass fragments. Along with the glass fragments, his dark hooded sweatshirt had red-brown transfer staining on the sleeve. Phone records had showed multiple missed calls exchanged between the victim and him on the evening of the incident, but during his statement, he mentions that he had spoken to the victim on the phone prior to the incident. There was also reported small cuts on the right hand during his interview, and his athletic shoes recovered from his residence within the circular heel wear patterns and displayed zigzag outsole. Suspect B, Megan Carter. She was a former ex-girlfriend of the victim. Witness reported ongoing personal disputes involving shared finances and personal belongings. She stated she visited the residence 2 days before the incident. Text message records documented recent arguments regarding financial issues. Her Latin fingerprints were recovered from a wine glass on the kitchen counter, and she had work boots that were recovered that displayed a linear tread unlike the footprints that were recovered from the crime scene, and there were no visible injuries during her initial interview. In the crime scene, witness Sarah Collins reported hearing loud arguing followed by a loud bang at around 10:40 p.m. She heard glass shattering followed by a loud bang that very well could have been similar to a gunshot. She then observed a tall male figure wearing dark clothing leaving the residence 2 minutes after the incident. She stated the victim had frequent arguments with visitors during the previous month, and she saw a dark-colored vehicle observed parked near the residence earlier that evening. Below is a graphical representation of the timeline. First, Tyler Johnson tries to call the victim earlier in the evening. Then, the neighbor hears arguing at 10:40 p.m., followed by a loud bang and glass shatter. Next, the witness observes a tall male figure leave the residence 2 minutes later. The witness then calls 911 at 10:57 p.m. Dispatch arrives to the scene at 11:05 p.m., and they observe the front door partially open, along with signs of disturbance that are observed throughout the residence. I believe that Tyler Johnson killed Jake Miller. There was unpaid money that could have been used as his motive. There were many arguments between the two of them. His vehicle was seen 1 hour prior to the incident by a witness, and the witness observed a man wearing a dark-colored sweatshirt like Tyler's. Phone records also showed multiple unanswered calls between him and the victim, although he stated in his initial interview they called in the evening prior to the incident. Along with his statements and what the witness stated, there was evidence used against Tyler Johnson. There were glass fragments found in the dark-colored hoodie taken from his car. There was a red-brown stain on his hoodie, which was used as a reference sample for the bloodstain patterns, and his athletic shoes that belonged to him had the same circular heel wear patterns and zigzag outsole characteristics that matched the footprints found in the residence.